Okay, just a bit more about John Milton. He has a totally different background from Shakespeare. Shakespeare, as Milton says at the end of L'Allegro, warbles his native wood notes wild. It's a very interesting passage in L'Allegro because Milton, after L'Allegro starts out in this very classical pastoral mode, evoking Thyrsis and Corydon and drawing from Virgil and the Greek eclogists, and then suddenly devolves at the top of the second to last page in our book, or suddenly evolves into a British and English country, summer country Sunday dinner with all sorts of very Queen Mab, like in Shakespeare, very local references. And Milton reaches back to English predecessors, talking about how great poetry can exist in an English tradition and not just in a Latin or Greek tradition. And in the Renaissance, of course, you had the poets reaching back to Greek and Latin models, but also wanting to talk about their own country and their own modernity. And Milton was consummately equipped to do that, but he makes clear the difference that, unlike Shakespeare, he was educated, he was trained. He went to Cambridge. He did brilliantly at Cambridge. He learned every language there was to learn: Greek, Latin, French, Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, and Italian, of course, and we'll get to. And people always talk about the influence of the King James translation on English literature. Milton did not need the King James translation. He could read the Bible in the original, in the Hebrew and Greek. He was an incredible scholar. And part of the reason his diction and word order is so unusual is that he knew so many other languages. So it's almost as if he's writing, he writ his own language, as one critic once said. And so Milton is this very educated man. And, usually after you go to one of the two universities at the time, Oxford or Cambridge, you either entered the church, and an overwhelming amount of the men, and it was all men, who went to these universities, entered the church, or you would possibly go down to London, do what John Donne did in his early years, try to advance your career in court, or becoming a secretary to the Lord Chancellor or somebody like that. Milton goes home. He goes home to the town of Horton it's either Berkshire or Buckinghamshire. It's one of the home counties. It's not in Derbyshire or anything. It's near London. And he stays with his father for 6 or 7 years. And his father kind of lets him write and lets him apprentice himself and gives him that kind of post-collegiate time to develop. And then Milton begins to essay the literary field. And these two poems, L'Allegro and Il Penseroso, are real indications of that. It's interesting, you have the same poet who does joy in one poem, does sadness in the other poem. And it's as if he's arguing both sides of the toss, both sides of the baton. He's looking at all of human experience, and when he wants joy, he tells melancholy to go away. When he wants melancholy, he says, "Go away, you vain, deluding joys. You're so trivial. You're so pesky. You're so distracting." It's melancholy that is really the ultimate truth. And you could see, L'Allegro was comedy and Il Penseroso was tragedy. And the Western tradition, at least, has always valued tragedy more than comedy.